And hello, everyone. How are you doing? It's Dave Bondy, Sunday night edition of Keeping It Real. It is the 17th of September. How are you doing, everyone? Thank you for all of the supporters who are here on this platform. I really appreciate it. Share this video out with your friends and your family. We're going to spend some time tonight focusing on a topic that you hear a lot about. I mean, a lot about it, from the president to the governor to local officials, electric vehicles. But do we really know everything there is to know about electric vehicles? And there's people watching right now on the chat. All of you, I want you to ask your questions as well, because we're going to get into the specifics of this. And this is not going to be political. It has nothing to do with politics. It's literally just the science behind it. So someone just said they can't hear me. Let me try to fix my audio here. Hold on. I apologize. Let's see. Let's get my audio. Someone cannot hear me. Let's make sure my audio. Oh, no, I think my audio is working fine. Oh, my audio is working fine. I apologize. Someone in the comments, you may need to turn up your speaker or something. Okay, well, I'm going to get to our guest right now. Really interesting guy, and I'm glad he is here as well. Patrick Durham, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So give a little background on who you are, because you seem like someone, you have expertise in a lot of different areas. Just give me a little background on your biography about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. I've been working the auto industry probably for the last 13 years now in different advanced projects throughout the auto industry. And most recently, I've been working on the battery box structure for the electric vehicles. But with that, I'm also a firefighter. I've been a firefighter since 2006, same length of time as I've been an engineer, and captain on the Troy Fire Department, training officer. And with all that combined experience, I put together a class to teach first responders, firefighters about electric vehicles and how to respond to incidents involving electric vehicles.
Well, someone watching the comments just said you have the firefighter mustache.
Yep, and that's I mean, that kind of goes to the name of my training company, Stash Training. Kind of figured I'd own that.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so EVs, electric vehicles, you're hearing a big push about them, and is it correct to say, are we in the infancy stage of them? What level are we? Because it seems like we're learning something new. Where is the technology with them? Where are we at? Are we just the very beginning of this?
So electric vehicles, they've been around for a very long time. I mean, some of the first vehicles were electric, right? And it just never really worked out because of the energy density, the amount of energy a lead acid battery can actually supply, as well as the circuitry around it and everything else. I always say the start of electric vehicles, like mass-produced electric vehicles, was the year 2000 with the Toyota Prius. That was a hybrid vehicle, but it was still an electric vehicle. I know the GM, they had their EV1 back in the 90s. They made about 1,000 of them. A lead acid vehicle went to nickel metal hydride. But again, not really, electric vehicles like we see today. It wasn't really until 2008, Tesla went out there, they created the Roadster, and they made this big push to, to electrify the vehicle. All the other manufacturers, all the traditional OEMs, I'd say they dabbled between 2008 and really now. But as far as like all the other manufacturers are concerned right now, I feel like the EV is in its infancy, as we see it today. It's very early on in the technology. Tesla, they've learned a lot. They're 77% of the electric vehicles on the road. They're a big player in the automotive market when it comes to electric vehicles.
Are they more advanced? It would seem like they are, from what I'm hearing.
I'd say the other OEMs are starting to catch up. Okay. I'd say Tesla is a risk taker. The traditional automotive manufacturers, they don't like risk, very risk adverse, and they're going to sit on that technology and they're going to wait until it's really defined. And a lot of technology in vehicles, it's 5 to 7 years old. So Tesla, they're developing this technology, they're getting it on the road right away. It's similar to your cell phone, right? Cell phones, a new model every single year. Automotive manufacturers, they don't like doing that. They don't like pushing the technology until it's really proven.
True. Okay, I'm not going to get into. I'm talking to you specifically about things we don't know. There's a lot of issues with EVs when it comes to, who they're good for, who they're not good for. But your expertise, and you have a lot of expertise, but when it comes to, for example, the battery on an electric vehicle, or how about this? What makes an electric vehicle different? Is it basically the battery? Because I've heard electric vehicles, they're really heavy, literally heavy.
So the battery box itself is very heavy. You're talking probably an average weight of 1,000 pounds, but they go anywhere from 800 to 1,500 pounds, just the battery box structure itself. You look at like the electric Hummer, for example, that's a 2,500 pound battery pack. So a lot of weight there. Now, are they heavier than your traditional combustion engine vehicles? A little bit. I'd say, maybe two, three, 400 pounds, depending on the vehicle. Because you got to remember, you're taking the engine, you're taking the transmission out of the vehicle at that point. Now you have a battery, you have electric motors. So it just kind of changes the weight distribution inside of the vehicle.
Sorry, I'm back. Someone in the comment just said a quick question. I'll ask it now before I forget. Would it be feasible if electric hybrid vehicles had a dry chem fire suppression system like airplanes do? Does that? I think I know what he's saying up there.
Yeah, unfortunately, no. Lithium-ion batteries, the way they combust, they don't need oxygen from the outside atmosphere to burn. They'll actually burn in a complete vacuum, or they'll burn underwater, for example.
Wow.
UL Fire Safety and Research Institute, they've done a lot of testing on different methods of trying to extinguish battery cells. And I wish I had one sitting on the desk. Usually I do. But when a battery cell fails, it's exothermic chemical reaction. It gives off a lot of heat and energy. It's like a pyrotechnic.
Wow.
It'd be like saying, I've got one firecracker in my hands right now. I'm going to set it on the desk. I'm going to light the fuse. And when that goes off, try to extinguish that. You can't do that. All we can do as firefighters, if we're lucky, is stop the propagation, stop that fire from spreading from cell to cell to cell to cell by trying to keep these other cells cool. So this battery fails, it's going to fail. Nothing you can do about this battery. All you can do is try to stop the cells around it from failing. And the batteries in an electric vehicle, they're located in a watertight, fireproof box. So it's almost impossible for us to get anything in there water-wise to try to cool the cells around them.
This I'm going to bring up on the screen.
This is
This was about 5 days ago in Australia. A YOA lithium-ion battery being blamed for a fire at the Sydney airport. I'm assuming it happened in one vehicle, but then quickly spread. So what I'm looking at here, that's what you're talking about. If it starts in one, it can quickly just continue to spread.
Absolutely. And I did see this incident. I've got a lot of questions on this incident because if you look down there, the battery box itself is kind of sitting underneath the vehicle in front of that vehicle. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what happened there. They say it's an airport parking lot, but why would the battery be out of the vehicle? I don't know. This
Yeah,
is a strange incident for sure.
and that's why I want to ask you, because I don't trust anything I see on the internet. So with the danger, there's several things. Fire, what about a crash? If you are in an electric vehicle and you are in an accident, I don't know if you do this sort of training, or what is different from that, or is there anything different when it comes to being involved in a automobile crash with an EV versus not an EV?
It really depends on how significant the crash is. If you're talking crashes under 40 miles an hour, you're probably okay. The battery box structure on these vehicles, they're still designed to absorb energy, protect the occupants, have those crumple zones, but they're also designed to protect the battery cells themselves, because you don't want to crush the battery cells, you don't want to damage stuff inside the battery box, the mechanical shock side of it. So the box is designed to really protect the batteries as well as the occupants. My fear is once you get above a certain level of crash, these really bad head-ons, you wrap a car around a telephone pole, the mechanical damage done to the battery box, the batteries themselves will catch the vehicle on fire before first responders even get there. When we start looking at, and when I train fire departments on how to respond to extrications, if we've got to go cut somebody out of a vehicle, normally it's not a big deal. We go up there, we do our job. We use our standard PPE, personal protective gear, but with an electric vehicle, because when these batteries get damaged, they can off gas some really nasty gases.
Oh,
We have to have the plan that we might actually have to do this extrication with our SCBA, which is our full face mask breathing apparatus. Um, so that could be a little bit of a different challenge. There is a little bit of concern as well on the high voltage. Some of these battery boxes can be up to 800 volts, but the way they're designed, the voltage isn't as much of a concern as the fire or the off gassing.
have you seen across the country examples of just what you're talking about that have happened in real life?
Unfortunately, the examples I've seen usually are fatalities involving fire. So it's hard to say, you know, what happened there. There's a lot of different investigations into them on the uh, government side, but yeah, on that side, I don't know.
Are fire departments equipped to handle this, or what more technology will they need? Obviously training, but what sort of equipment, technology, like you said, and I'm assuming they're not all prepared right now. I know local volunteer fire
No.
departments in our area. What do they need? And obviously you're shaking their head, they're not ready. What do they need?
Uh, a lot of training. Some of it is just training to understand what's going on with the vehicles, the additional hazards. Some of it is the training to understand. There's a lot of tools being sold to fire departments right now to, extinguish these fires, but yeah, a lot of it's snake oil because the people creating these tools don't quite understand the actual problem they're trying to solve.
Exactly. So it sounds like I don't get my opinion as a journalist, but does the industry maybe need to hold back and slow down a little bit until everybody can get on the same page? Maybe? I,
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't see the industry slowing down. I know there's this big push to be all EV or mostly EV by 2030, 2035. Personally, I think number one, I don't think the consumers are gonna buy into this, especially when you see some of the faults with electric vehicles, charging, cold weather, that type of thing. But at least on the OEM side, that the manufacturer side, you are seeing some trainings out there by them. GM's put out a training. They're traveling the country. They were traveling the country, training firefighters on this. Tesla has a training program as well. Most of the manufacturers are putting out what's called an ERG or emergency response guide, which is a multi-page document that we look up. We pull this document out, and now we can see how to disable these vehicles, immobilize them, certain safety aspects when we're looking at the vehicles.
is it
So
a
at least
is
they're
there
start.
sorry, is there a particular equipment or technology, or is it more so just the knowledge in your head that the firefighters need?
Some of it's knowledge, and some of it's just knowing that those emergency response guys are out there and referencing them when they come across these types of vehicles.
Wow. Okay. I'll ask you. I'm not sure if you know, but when these batteries fail, they're not cheap, right? I mean, these are not cheap
Right.
items. If you had to, is that true? What I always hear, you always hear it thrown around. Oh, that's an $18,000 replacement if something happens.
Yeah, they're definitely that expensive, in that range. Yeah, I'd say 15, 25,000, depending on the vehicle. If you have a failure in your battery, and something catches on fire, that vehicle's totaled. You're not replacing the battery.
Now, an instance, say for example, I live right off I-75, as you're familiar with as well. You're in a crash, 60 miles per hour, something happens. Now, if there is a fire, is it like with a gas powered car where it's a slow moving fire, or with an EV, could there be an explosion? I mean, there can be with a gas powered car, but how are the fires different between the two kinds?
Yeah, I would say explosions in any vehicle, combustion engine or electric vehicle, not really likely. What you are seeing with the electric vehicles, the fires are far more. When the fire's in the battery itself, that high voltage battery, it's far more energetic. If you have just a vehicle fire, maybe somebody dropped a cigarette in their passenger seat, you lit the interior of that vehicle on fire. It's a
Yeah.
traditional vehicle fire. It's a couple hundred gallons of water. You can put it out quickly. If that high voltage battery is involved, that's when it's going to take a lot of time for it to burn. And right now, the recommendation is for firefighters, if that vehicle is not near any exposures or any buildings, other cars inside a building, the recommendation is let that vehicle burn. It's going to take about an hour, hour and a half. That battery will burn itself out. And then you can do a little bit of mop up with a few hundred gallons of water after the fact. If you're going to try to fight this fire, it's going to take you a very long time 4, 6, 8 hours, 30, 40, 60,000 gallons of water. If you look at the different case studies out there, and it's difficult for us as firefighters, anybody as a firefighter, because when the public looks at us, if we're standing there, we got our arms crossed, we're just watching this thing burn, they're going to look at us, do your job. Why aren't you doing anything? Because they don't know. But on the flip side, the public, they drive to work in the morning, they see us fighting this fire. They drive home from work in the evening, they see us still fighting this fire. What's this fire department doing? They can't put out a vehicle fire. They don't know how to do their job. So we're kind of stuck when it comes to electric vehicles, when it comes to the public's perspective on this.
Yeah, but there's no other way to fight that fire, right? I mean, there's nothing else you can do, right? I mean,
Not easily.
no.
There are some companies out there. Unfortunately, they're not here, but like Renault is a French auto manufacturer. They've got a small hole. It's in the back, underneath the back seat, that allows fire departments to spray water directly into the battery pack itself, and
Oh,
that helps extinguish the fire. It gets enough cooling effect that we can stop the fire. Um,
so it's things like that. What you just said right there, and they're a foreign company, but those are the type of advances those are the things we need. Like you working with the automotive companies all coming together for the right solution.
Right. And we really need access inside of the battery pack to get water inside of that battery pack. The Swedish have done a study, Swedish fire departments, they've done a study, and they've determined that if you can get water inside the battery pack, you can stop the fire, and it makes things go a lot quicker. The downside of that is now you've got thermally damaged battery cells, you've got electrical components, bus bars that are melted, and you could have a delayed fire where that vehicle catches on fire a day, a week, a month later. So, that's the other issue when you start looking at electric vehicles.
Someone just asked in the questions, and I don't know if you know this or not. How long do the batteries last? How often do they need to be replaced in the life of a car? I don't know if I have that answer.
I don't know if there's enough information out there to know yet. I know
Yeah.
Tesla, they warranty their batteries. I believe it's for 10 years.
Okay.
But what does it mean when you get to 10 years? Are you only going to be able to charge up to 80%, 60%? I'm sure you're going to lose some life there, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's really hard to tell. And I'm sure it has more to do with your charge discharge cycling. How often do you drive this vehicle?
I gotcha. When they had the hurricanes down in Florida, I remember Fort Myers. There was fires. It can water like if a car is underwater. What was that happening down there? There were several fires after the hurricane went through. I don't know why. Does like a car underwater cause problems? Or I saw that a lot in videos after the hurricane went through there.
Right. So down there, they had a really big issue with the storm surge. Everything flooded. They flooded out
Yeah.
these electric vehicles. They ended up having, I believe it was 22 electric vehicles catch on fire when those
Yeah.
floodwaters receded. Um, what surprised me, and I was just in a conference in Florida, I spoke down there on the topic, and I found out that they had 22 fires in electric vehicles, but I think it was hundreds of golf carts that actually caught on fire because of the lithium-ion batteries. Some were in buildings, some were at golf courses. They pulled them outside, but they had a lot of golf cart fires. They had a lot of e-mobility fires. So your electric bikes, your electric scooters, those caught on fire as well.
So is it after the water receded and then you tried to use the vehicle, the bike, whatever? Is that like when you got in and tried to power it up? Is that when the fire would happen?
A lot of it was because of corrosion inside that battery pack. So
Oh,
something corroded, something failed inside that battery pack, shorted things out, and then they went up.
gotcha. Real quick, I know I see the Stash D training there. there could be lots. I'm going to put this out to everyone on all the platforms, volunteer fire departments, big city fire departments. Do you offer training if someone's watching and does want to contact you to see how to train their people?
Absolutely. So I've been traveling primarily around Michigan, but I've been in New York, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Florida. So I do travel around and train fire departments. I also have a YouTube channel, Stash Training, where I've got a lot of content out there on electric vehicle response.
I'll put that link in the video as well. Let me just look at the questions right here. It seems a lot of people are uncertain about this, and you're not saying you're 100% against electric vehicles, but with any
Yeah.
new technology, things evolve and things change, and we need to just learn about them.
Right. And most electric vehicle owners will never experience a fire. But
Yeah.
as a firefighter, we respond to things daily that most people never experience. We go to, the worst of the worst a lot of the time. So we've got to be prepared for these types of incidents. For us, it's not if it's going to happen. We're going to get a fire. We're going to get an extrication involving an electric vehicle. That's just how it goes. In 2021, we had about 17,000 electric vehicles registered in the state. This year, we're up to about 34,000, if I remember the
Wow.
numbers correctly. So it seems like about every year those numbers are doubling, and you're seeing more and more electric vehicles on the roadway.
Yeah, and if the goal of the administration and the government, even 20 years from now, if we're mostly EVs, then obviously, yeah, the fire departments, that's what you're going to be responding to. Um, so yeah, I appreciate you educating everyone about this. Let me check the comments really quick. Just see right here. Someone just said, I don't think I'll be purchasing an electric car soon. But like you said, not to scare people, most EV owners,
Right.
this is not going to happen to them.
Yeah, and I've driven electric vehicles. We have some at work. We've got a few different brands, and they're really fun to drive. And I do see a benefit to them. But personally, me right now, it doesn't fit my lifestyle. They don't seat enough. They don't have enough seats for kids. I travel way too much. I'll drive 500 miles in a night, and I don't have
Wow.
time to sit around at a charger. I don't have enough time.
How does that work? Literally, I've heard so many stories. For example, 500 miles. Let's say I'm wanting to drive to Birmingham, Alabama, where I used to work. I need a charge. I pull over to charge. How long does it take? Or do they have different charging ways to do it faster, slower? What's the time frame if your battery's on empty?
Yeah, it's really dependent on the vehicle. It's pretty quick to get from wherever you're at up to 80%. It's that last 20% that's very difficult. I kind of equate it to filling up your gas tank. If you put the nozzle in there, you're filling up your gas tank, you get to the top, you get to the point where it cuts itself off. Okay, you still have, you can still fit a little bit in your tank, a couple gallons, but you have to do it really slow.
Yeah.
Batteries are the same way. You can get them up to 80% fairly fast, but that last little bit, it takes some time. As far as charging your vehicle, Tesla's got a very good charging network out there.
Hmm.
And the third party chargers that are out there, they're hit or miss from what I'm seeing. There's a lot of
Hmm.
broken chargers out there. They don't work the way they're supposed to work. Now, going forward, a lot of the manufacturers, they have adopted the Tesla charging standard or the North American charging standard. So vehicles going forward will be able to use the Tesla chargers, and that should really improve the driver experience for a lot of people.
Last question. For those who get an electric vehicle and they charge in their home, anything people need to know? Is there a danger there? Do they need to upgrade their electricity? Or for someone for the first time who gets one, I'm assuming the dealership will walk them through it, but is there any danger or concerns about actual at home, having it in the garage, plugging it in?
The only concern I've seen is related to the recalls. Like the Chevy Bolt recall, for example, the Jaguar I-Pace. I think there's a minivan, Pacifica hybrid minivan. They were all recalled because of charging fires. The vehicle caught on fire while charging. But as far as upgrading your electrical service, you have to realize that number one, you're not going to be able to plug this thing into 110 volt, just your standard outlet in your garage and charge very effectively. On top of that, the 110 chargers, they take quite a bit of current and it's constant current. So it's a lot of strain on your electrical system. And if you have an older home, there have definitely been fires out there because people have uh, old wiring in their homes and it can't hold up to the demands of the charging system. Now, when you start looking at your bigger charging systems, like your 220 volt, your level 2 chargers, it's going to cost some money to get an electrician in there to get those, to get your system upgraded, to get those wired in properly. You've got to use, if it's got a commercial, if it's got a plug on it where you plug it in your house, almost like a dryer or stove plug, you need to use commercial grade uh, outlets, for example. But everything's got to be done properly. And some homes, especially your older homes, they might not have, it might be an 80 or 100 amp service on your home. You can't, you're going to have to upgrade your entire service, electrical service for your home in order to install a charger.
Yes, I'm glad you just said that, because as you were talking, someone said you have to redo your electrical, but it's definitely a concern then if you're living in a really old home, but you need to look into
Right.
that. Okay, so once again, if someone's watching, what's the YouTube channel that people can, or what's the best way to contact you? You have a website?
Yeah, it's www.stashedtraining.com, or my YouTube channels at Stash Training.
Okay. Oh, one last thing. Someone just brought a question up, and thanks for sticking with me, but we talked about it before we went live. One of the school districts here has electric school buses. That scares me, says the person commenting. And what about, like, in the future? Are we going to see tractor trailers, every sort of vehicle, EV? I mean, I can imagine what it would take to power a semi tractor trailer or even a school bus. That's a lot of battery power, I would think.
Realistically, lithium-ion batteries are everywhere at this point. You,
Huh.
you go to your big box stores, for example, your string trimmers, your leaf blowers, your chainsaws, your lawnmowers, push mowers, and your zero turns riding lawnmowers, all lithium-ion batteries. And it's
Yeah.
it's becoming this big push. So it's not just there. You're seeing it in construction equipment, e-mobility, wheelchairs, golf carts. They're definitely into the semi trucks, the buses. So these types of batteries are pretty much everywhere at this point. Even if you look around your home, think about how many devices you have that have lithium-ion batteries. Your drills, laptops, cell phones, tablets. You probably have, you probably have 20, 30 lithium-ion powered devices in your home right now.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm going to put the links out. I'll send you the link, and maybe I'll have you back, because this is something that's continuing to evolve. And I really appreciate you taking your Sunday night to talk to me.
Oh, thanks for having me on anytime.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Goodbye.